Well, good morning, and thank you for joining us here at the Rolex Clubhouse. We're just over 24 hours away from the start of the historic 50th edition of the Rolex Fastnet race. And over the next 45 minutes, we're going to be talking to a diverse fleet of sailors who are taking on this iconic 695-mile race. And they're in some way a metaphor for the rest of the 3,000 or so sailors competing. We've got world-class pros, we've got Corinthians, we've got old, we've got young, we've got people who are paying to play. The opportunities and diversities of this fleet is one of the many attractions of this great race, the Rolex Fastnet race. So first off, we're going to introduce who we've got on the stage. So right now, joining us, we have Ellie Driver, who's racing two-handed with her dad, Jim, on Chili Pepper. We've got, in IRC1, Jerry Trentiso with Long Courier. And we have Paddy Broughton, who's the co-skipper of the Australian Kealoha 2, a magnificent classic. Welcome to you all. So we've got to go ladies first, Ellie. So, Ellie, we've got over 100 boats racing two-handed. What is the attraction to you?
Thank you very much, Louis, and thank you for the introduction and having me here. I think definitely the attraction to me of doing it two-handed is the challenge that it brings. Whether that's the mental challenge and also the physical challenge, or just dealing with my dad, you've got to deal with everything that a fully crewed boat's got to deal with, but there's just two of you on board, and managing sleep, choosing where to go, what sails to put up, every single decision is just between the two of you. And with the biggest fleet in the race of 106 boats, it's a very diverse fleet, as you said, just between Corinthians and pros and old and young and men and women. And to have the opportunity to race against all of these amazing sailors and being part of it, and the social aspect as well, is just really special.
That's a great answer. Jerry Trentiso, a grandmaster. I'm going to call you that, a grandmaster of this Rolex Fastnet race and many, many, many others. You first did the race in 1977, I believe, but it took you 38 years to win it. This is going to be your 17th race, Jerry. What is the attraction of the Rolex Fastnet race?
The attraction is it's only to be here in Chaos and to finish the race and to run the rock with my friend. We have the same crew for 25 years. We are a bit old, but we are very happy to be here today.
Thank you, Jerry. Paddy Broughton, Kealoha 2, an amazing history in sailing, let alone the Rolex Fastnet race. Why are you, your brother and your crew looking to write another chapter in this, the 50th edition of the Rolex Fastnet race?
When my brother Keith and I bought Kealoha 2 in 2016, we had this idea that we wanted to retrace Jim Kilroy's steps and do some of the great ocean races that the old girl had done in the 60s when she was essentially the first maxi. We took part in the 2017 Fastnet race and then sailed down to Sydney and took part in the 2017 Sydney Hobart race. We've done a bunch of Sydney Hobart races since then, took part in the 75th Rolex Sydney Hobart race, also the 50th Transpac race, all of the races which the old girl had done in her time. And we always had this plan to come back and participate in the Rourke celebrations of the 50th Rolex Fastnet race. So for us, it's been kind of an important waypoint at the end of a big project.
Interesting. Just to say that the members of the press, we will be letting you speak to our fantastic sailors, but we'll do that after a few questions, just so you know. Ellie, you're studying, I find it hard to say this, it's so complicated. You're studying a Master of Maritime Mechanical Engineering at Southampton University, is Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Maritime engineering.
Okay. And there's a lot of high-tech boats in this Rolex Fastnet race. You know, from the Ultimes to the 52s and the Class 40s and others. So, if you had the chance to do this race, let's throw in a wobbler here and say, with the current forecast, which one would you choose?
Well, I've always been interested in the bigger kind of double-handed, single-handed boats like the Class 40s and the Imocas. And Pip, who's going to speak later, is quite a big inspiration to me. And hopefully we'll get to go sailing soon. But maybe, Pip, we'll change boats for this race and see what you think about that one.
Oh, we'll get Pip to answer that in a minute. Yeah, so that sounds like a flying Imoca like Medallia, yeah?
Yeah, that'd be pretty good.
Okay, all right. Jerry, you've had incredible success in boats all called Courrier. You've often chosen innovative new boats, but Long Courrier is 10 years old. Why did you decide?
No, it's not really 10 years old. It's 7 years old. And it's a British design, designed by Jason Kerr. And I was looking for a boat to race the Fastnet, so I bought this boat in Mediterranean on January. And but I did many Fastnet on different boats. So a boat is a boat. It's a good boat, and I hope that we very fast upwind in the breeze. So it's a good boat.
Very good answer. I think you might say that you think you have a chance maybe of getting your hands on this wonderful trophy as well?
Certainly not, no.
Good call.
So Paddy, you're going to be starting with IRC Zero and with IRC Super Zero, with all of those amazing machines around you. But you've also got Stormvogel on the start line, haven't you? 1961 Van der Stat. That's got to be an obvious match. You're pretty similar on IRC rating. What are you hoping for conditions-wise? What's good for Kealoha too?
Good question. For us, I think the heavy upwind will be quite useful because she's 45 tons and cutting through the slot should be quite interesting. And we've got plenty of flexibility in terms of sails. But interestingly, the other piece that may favour us is from the rock onwards. If the breeze is 12 to 14 from the quarter, that's really when the old girl goes well, because we can get 5 sails up, we hit hull speed pretty much immediately. It's probably before a lot of the other boats can get planing, and that's really where we start to clock up on a handicap perspective. So it'll be really interesting. And Stormvogel, I imagine the same thing. I think 2 years ago she was up there in the ratings after the first heavy air on the nose piece, and I would hope that we're in a similar state this time.
Wonderful to hear that. And just come back to Ellie. How many Sunfast 300s have we got in this race, Ellie?
I think there's 32. It's the biggest class of boat in the race.
Okay, but you're racing obviously within an IRC class, but what's the punch-up going to be like in the Sunfast 300s?
Well, especially with the UK boats being racing against each other for quite a while now. And everyone is finishing races within like 10 minutes of each other, if not closer together. So hopefully by the end of the 4 days, it will still be really, really close racing. And obviously with the Sunfast 33s coming over from France and other places that are also incredibly competitive, as we found in the last 2 races of the La Trinité cows and then the cows St. Malo, making up the double-handed Europeans. The French are very, very good and very well up there.
Yeah, the French are top 3 in the IRC Europeans, aren't they? Yeah. Well, you've got one hell of a Frenchman sitting next to you, Jerry Trentissot, 17th Fastnet. Jerry, what advice would you give this very bright, intelligent 21-year-old Ellie driver sitting next to you?
To sail very hardly. Don't. We say in France, ne rien lâcher. To be always at maximum. Everybody on the rail, and you will stop in Cherbourg. You have. I saw you racing last year. You sail very well, so you can win the race. Yeah.
Thank you, Jerry. And Paddy, I've got to mention the cricket. I'm sorry. For those of you that didn't watch the Old Trafford action yesterday, England were superb. But we've got 5 Australian entries up here. What's the lure for Australians to come all that way?
This is one of the great ocean classics, and indeed it's probably technically the most difficult of the ocean classics. You know, the tidal gates, the customs formalities getting into France, all that kind of stuff. But no, technically it's one of the more difficult races, and it is, you know, a great race to do. If you love ocean racing, this is one of probably the 4 majors that you should do, and probably the pinnacle of them all.
Oh, that's interesting. And your forecast for the Old Trafford Test, last but not least, Paddy. Do you think
you promised you wouldn't bowl any bouncers? I'm an amateur batsman. No. Well, I think England will win it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, wonderful.
And that'll take into a nice 5th Test and a great series. Yeah. Very entertaining it's been too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we've got members of the press who've been waiting very patiently here. Charlie has got a microphone, so just wait for the microphone to get to you, please. And we would like to get some questions from the floor. Just put your hand up, please.
Hi, Magnus Wheatley.
Magnus Wheatley. Charlie, just check the sound on the mic. Would you mean?
1 2. Question. I've got loads of questions for Ellie, but actually, if you don't mind, 3 questions. So how quickly, and I really want to talk about the actual sailing, how quickly after the start do you get into routine? And what is that routine? Can you describe the fatigue factor? And are there any unique preparations that you've made for this particular Fastnet race?
Okay, first question first. So I think for us, it greatly depends on the weather that we actually get on the start. And how close the feet are together. Of course, the sooner you start getting into the watch system, you can reduce the amount of fatigue that you're going to endure. But if we've got 25, 30 knots and really close racing, then it's just not really sensible for us to go down until everything's a little bit more settled. So in terms of when we will, it will greatly depend on the weather that is actually presented to us. Normally, watch system will do around 45 minutes at night and then maybe an hour and a half during the day. We did the RBI, the 7-star last year, and because that was a bit longer, being 16 days or however long it was, we then went into longer watches of 3-4 hours just to reduce the fatigue over the longer time. But with it only being 4 days, we might be able to keep to a max of 1.5 hours just to make sure that the person on deck is 100% always on it. Me and Dad are quite real with each other, so if one of us is getting tired and does need a break, then we will just wake the other one up and make sure that the boat is still going as quick as it can, as we can, most of the time. And then your last question, I've forgotten your last question.
I'm going to hold you there. Magnus, we've only got 5 minutes for this, so have a breakout with Ellie afterwards, by all means. More questions, please. Oh, I've really done it there, haven't I? Cut Magnus off at his prime. Magnus Wheatley.
Ellie, sorry, the unique preparations that you're making for this Fastnet, is there, what planning process do you go through? Route mapping, kit on board, food, what anything unique that you're doing for this race?
Yeah, so I've kind of been studying the weather for the last kind of 10 days ever since it really came onto the grib. So every time a new grib's come in, I've been doing a routing and kind of tracking how the weather systems have been going through. In terms of the stuff that we've got on the boat, as much as we like to reduce weight on the boat, I'm quite a firm believer if I'm not happy and I don't have everything I need, then I'm not going to be able to race well. So we're definitely fully stocked on the food side of things and nice comforts as we go around. Mum makes some amazing banana bread that we always take. So we've got a few home comforts on the way around the race, and that should keep us going till the very end.
Okay, any more questions? The gentleman here, Charlie. I know one of our Islander. Please state who you are and your publication, please.
Alan Whitewood, Island Echo. Question for all of you on the stage, really. Quite simply, how do you find the two races, the longer distance that we're now into for the Fastnet, and the shorter distance that it used to come back to Plymouth? How do they compare?
Well, the last one was to Cherbourg as well, so I haven't actually done one to Plymouth. So it's probably better you two answering.
I would prefer Plymouth. Because when we come to England, it's to drink beers and not to go to Cherbourg.
And I'm completely the reverse. The crew and all the Aussies are really looking forward to going to Cherbourg. The Sydney-Hobart race, we've been spoiled. Hobart is one of the great places to end a race because everybody's been watching the race at 1 o'clock of the Boxing Day test. So everybody knows there's a race going on. If you go to Plymouth and you move more than about 20 metres from the waterfront, nobody even knows there's a race going on, or there's a race called the Fastnet race. And I have to say, the Aussie boys were deeply disappointed last time in 2017 at the kind of nicely set up, but a gravel car park and basically no reception. So we're looking forward to testing the reception in Cherbourg and drinking a bit of good French wine and taking advantage of the restaurants.
That's wonderful, Paddy. I would not have got any of those answers, to be honest with you. They were all new to me. We've got just about a minute or so left before we run a little film. We've got time for one more quick question. It's a long way to go, but I think this one's coming all the way from New Zealand. Is that right?
Yeah, coming all the way from New Zealand. Sue Ellen here from Live, Sail, Die and Predict Wind. This could completely backfire, but are any of you guys using the Predict Wind offshore apps? Excellent, great news. How are you finding it?
Yeah, we actually only got it about 3 weeks ago because we got an Iridium exec and it interlinks with them both. Yeah, brilliant. Can download all the weather observations and the satellite images and then GPS tracking and all the cloud cover, rain, wind, everything. It's great.
Fantastic. Great to hear that an app from New Zealand is able to help you guys get around this race. Thank you so much.
Paddy uses it as well.
Oh, yeah, we use it too. Actually, where we found it most useful was coming across the oceans where you've only got satellite coverage. It's a much more intuitive and easier to use section of that downloading GRIBs, which you can either use in the offshore app or indeed you can plug into something like Expedition. But we only ever use Predict Wind to download the weather off the satellite.
Okay. Well, I think we're going to show a little film now, and I'd just like to say thank you very much to Ellie, Jerry and Paddy. Thank you.
The big evolution of this boat in the last 10 years. Of course, it's foiling and of course it's flying. And it has been with small steps we did in every boat. And one of the things we probably work a lot, if we are not only talking about the foils, daggerboards, the rudders, or all the appendages that help us to fly, we also work a lot in the aero of the platform, because of course now we're going pretty fast and we have strong apparent winds. and it's important to not drag in the air, also not only in the water.
Let's talk a little bit about strategy, tactics. The Rolex Fastnet race, 695 miles. It's a sprint. It's 24 hours or a little bit more. How does that strategy, that tactic change for, say, something like an Atlantic record?
It is a big difference in between a record and a race. You don't choose when you're living. And if you compare, of course, with the timing, it's one, as you say, around 1 day, 1 night, compared to even with our boat, it could be pretty fast to cross Atlantic, but it's at least 5, 6, 7 days. So the timing is not the same. So, and even more compared to what I'm used to sail also, which is solo or double-handed most of the time, we're 6 on board, only 1 day of racing. So it will be, focus, full speed all the time. There is not so much time for resting. For rest, it's it will be full speed all the time, as much as we can.
And in 2019, that narrow defeat right at the end, you're smiling now. I bet you weren't when that happened. And this time, after that narrowing, is there even more energy on SVR to beat Banque Populaire?
Of course, I like to win. Everyone likes to win. So we prefer to finish first better than second. But it was a great race, and we had a lot of fun. We learned a lot also on the boat. So if we have the chance to live something close to this with Banque Populaire, it will be great.
You know the Fastnet Rock well from when you were a younger man in the Figaro. And for you, what is it like to go round that famous lighthouse?
It's always a pleasure. You know, when you're doing the race, of course, but even when you're training and you saw these rocks, it's you look at it. It's a symbolic, and it's important rocks for all sailors.
Maxi Edmond de Rothschild, 33 hours, 14 minutes, 54 seconds. SVR Lazardigue 2023. Can you beat it?
Hope so. But that's first. First it's a race. So first, we want to race correctly with all the boats, and especially with Banque Populaire, which will be the only 2 team on the race. So trying, as I say, to finish 10 seconds in first of the second. And after, for talking about record, it depends, of course, of the weather. But if the question is our boat, and I'm of course Banque Populaire also, these 2 boats could beat this record? Yes, of course. If the conditions are good, yes, we can. And I just wish a good luck for all boats and all competitors in the Rolex Fastnet race.
Well, that is going to be some race between the 2 old teams to Cherbourg. And it's all going to unravel starting tomorrow from 1300 BST at the Royal Yacht Squadron line. Well, in that changeover, while you were watching that video, we've actually got some more guests on, and I'll just give a quick introduction. And starting with Pip Hare in Mocha Medaglia, we've got Shirley Gervolino, who is on EH01, the first 47.7 from Global Yacht Racing. We've got Ben Ibbotson, who's the skipper of Andrasta. And we've got Andrew Cape, who is the navigator on Lucky, and Brad Butterworth, who's the tactician on Lucky. I'm going to start with Andrew Cape. I'll just call you Capey. Is that okay, Capey?
No problem.
2 days, 8 hours, 33 minutes, 55 seconds. What are the conditions looking like for Lucky to break that? Is it a possibility?
It's a big possibility. I'd say like a 75% chance. And readings have us 2 days and 2 hours, so looking pretty good. But like anything with weather, any plan never lasts past the first contact, so we'll just wait and see.
And how well are the models coming together? You're saying 75%. I'm guessing they're not quite together.
5 out of 6 I look at have us beating the record, yeah.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. I'm sure the press might be interested in that. Potential monohull race record. Let's have a chat with... Ben Ibbotson. So should just explain that Ben is the skipper of an Incenni 39. It's part of the Griffin Fund. So the Griffin Fund was set up by the Rourke just after the Second World War, and it encourages young sailors and new sailors as well into offshore yacht racing. So this is the latest edition, and Ben and the team have been training for 2 years with Bill Edgerton, and they're about to do... Is this your first Fastnet?
Yes, it is.
First Fastnet. Wonderful. Just hold the mic right up there all the time. I'm pretty bad at it, to be honest with you. So you're going to be on the start line with these two guys. You're an IRC Zero, IRC Super Zero, same start. Up against all that high-tech machinery. Brad Butterworth right here has the longest winning streak in the America's Cup, 16 matches on the bounce. Is that going to be a proud moment or just terrifying, Ben?
I think personally I'm a nervous starter. I always have been since 29 days. So I'll be shivering in the back of the boat, a nervous wreck. But my crew's all prepped, they're all ready, they know what they're doing. I think we'll try and keep it as chilled out before the start as we can. And then I'm insanely proud to have the opportunity to skip Andrasta and to sail with the crew. And I trust them, so I think we'll be good.
Yeah, you were talking to me outside about 10 minutes ago, and you said you're going to be quite nervous at the start. You're worrying about, I'll use the word, messing it up. Just explain why that's in the back of your mind.
I think it comes from dinghy days where if you're not the first boat off the line, you are not winning a race. I have to remind myself that the race isn't won in the Solent. It's very much won in the next 600 miles. So we'll play it safe. We'll make sure we get a clean start and a safe start. And I think we'll be happy for the rest of the race then. Settle in.
Thanks very much, Ben. And I'm delighted to say that we've got Shirley and Pip on the boat. Sorry, on the stage, I should say. That would be an interesting combo. But saw a cracking post from James Boyd about 12% women in the last Rolex Fastnet race. We are looking like there's going to be more than that in this one. We're just sort of counting the numbers. What, Pip, Hare, can sailing do to encourage more women? And what can women do to make that happen?
So, yeah, I'm really pleased to see the numbers going up, but it's still not enough. And the reason I say that is because there are definitely women out there who want to participate in offshore racing. And offshore racing is a sport that really lends itself to mixed crews. And the reason for that is because it takes a diverse range of skills and abilities to get a boat round something like the Fastnet track. And those skills and abilities, and in fact, the strength that you need is not all about your stature, your size, your muscle size. It's about brain power, it's about technique, it's about problem solving, it's about being calm, it's about having endurance. And all of these qualities are equally available to men and to women. So I think, it would be really nice to see more women feeling like they belong out there on the water. And I guess that's the first thing I have to say is, ladies, you belong, you're good enough, you have the ability to build the skill to race with everyone. So do not doubt yourselves. And then secondly, kind of just treat it like a job almost. Do a skills inventory of the skills that you do have. don't underestimate yourself. You know, think about the practical skills you have. Go and talk to other people on other boats and find out what skills they're missing. And then try and learn them. Find opportunities to learn, to study weather routing software, study navigation, study boat work. But more than anything, we all belong out there, and I think we've just seen in the ocean race how well mixed crews work together. And there's no reason why we can't have more mixed crews. So get out there because it's really fun and you belong.
Wonderful. And so it should be well received. We're going to come to Shirley in a bit, but we'll have a quick chat with Brad first. But Shirley, we're going to talk to you about. No, actually, do you mind, Brad? I'd rather jump with Shirley. So Shirley, you were a dinghy sailor. What got you into offshore racing? Let's go the practical side of what.
Well, I used to be a dinghy sailor when I was young, as a holiday activity, and well, since I'm a woman, how do you say, a modern woman, busy and a stressful life. I think offshore racing was a good opportunity for me to disconnect, because when you are offshore, you have no time or space references, the usual references you've got, and this is the way to disconnect. And when you are racing, it's also you have to be concentrated and try to be the best at any time. And it's also a way to disconnect. I love this.
Thank you very much, Shirley. And you've come all the way from New Caledonia to get here.
Yes, I did.
Well done. Well, we'd love to hear something from Brad here, particularly after KP saying 75% on for a race record. Brad, you know, the currents, the wind forecasts are pretty predictable for this course, or we have very good data. What are you looking at in terms of optimizing the performance for Lucky? What's going to matter?
Finishing.
That's not a bad answer. Could you elaborate?
I mean, I don't believe KP, by the way, but you have to finish, and the first day is going to be pretty sporty, and I think there'll be a lot of boats be thinking twice about continuing on, like us, but we're setting up for quite a bit of wind the first day, and I think you have to get through that, and to break any record, you have to finish.
Okay.
That's it.
So first and foremost, it's to finish. Then you see where you are. Would that be a fair way in terms of, do we push it harder for the last 100 miles?
Oh, we'll be pushing hard. There's no question about that. But we've got a very good crew on board the boat, and they're all, you know, seasoned offshore sailors, and the trick's just not to break, really. And so you just have to have some experience there that you know when to push it and when not to push it.
Okay. Could we go back to Pip? Thank you very much, Brad. So Pip, you got Medallia out of the box. She's been in the how long has your boat been in the shed, Pip?
6 weeks, 6 months and 2 weeks.
And just explain what the major mods are that you've done to the boat.
So my original boat, so it was the 2016 boat that holds the IMOCA course record, and it was designed originally with small foils, and we wanted to upgrade the performance to match the 2024 generation boats. There are 40 new builds this year for the IMOCA fleet, and you can just see on the video there, we've doubled the size of our foils. So we had new foils built in France, we had the structural work done in Carrington's just up the way there, and the foils have gone from 3.4 metres long to 5.4 metres long. And we hope it's put the boat within 95% of the performance of a 2024 generation boat. And it was pretty emotional when it all came together. Such a big project, and it was a big leap for me because we're still having to raise the funding to make it work. And, you know, the easy path would have been to continue with a boat that came first and then third in the Vendée. You know, it was a really good, strong boat. I made the decision to go for it because I wanted to upgrade the performance. So it was a big leap of faith, and having it all come together has been amazing. We've been on the water for 3 weeks. I've done 6 days of sailing, top speed 30 knots by accident. It's wild, and I've got so much to learn.
Wonderful. And, you know, wonderful seeing you're emotional on those images we've just shown.
Yeah, and it is emotional. You know, I think we have a slightly different team model from many of the others in that this is my team. You know, I created my own team and I've raised all of my own funding. And, you know, we are based in the UK, which is a bit different as well. And everything is hard. It's really, really hard work when you have to generate everything yourself. And so to make these huge leaps and to want to be ahead and keep pushing on is a big thing for me, and when it comes together, I cried.
That's wonderful. And again, the press have been waiting here to ask some questions. So Charlie's got a microphone. If you'd like to ask a question to our sailors, just put your hand up and wait for the mic. Matt Sheehan at the front here, Charlie.
Thanks, Matt Sheehan, Planet Sail. KP, your confidence that the record will be broken, and as you say, a 75% chance of that. What gives you that confidence? What's changed? Where's the element? Where's the thing that gives you the confidence?
The forecasts. Simple as that. It's about weather.
Yeah, I was thinking more about, you know, what stage of the course. I mean, is it the upwind? Is it the reaching? Is it the what? Where do you think the game will be made?
Just got to avoid light patches. And at the moment, there's not many for us, so that'll be the decider. At the moment, it looks good for that.
Okay.
James Boyd.
Yeah, I've got another one for KP. Often when you look at the weather for this race, you can sort of predict slightly in advance whether it's going to be a big boat or a small boat or a medium kind of boat race. What's it looking like? I mean, is it looking good as a big boat race, do you reckon, this time?
Good question. No, I don't look at how the other boats perform. I just look after us and worry about that after the finish, because anything can happen.
But it's a good forecast for you in terms of, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Any more questions from the floor? I'd just like to add that we do have a sweepstake in the media team, and James Boyd is trying to get inside information to see who's going to win the Fastnet Challenge Cup. Any more questions? Yes, we've got a question from Helen Fretter, Yachting World.
Hi, yeah, one for Pip. Taking the IMOCAs out double-handed with a fleet this big, how do you handle that?
Very cautiously. I mean, that is the bit I am the most worried about, and I know all of the other IMOCA skippers are worried about it as well. The boats are pretty hard to manoeuvre. Obviously, we've got a lot of bits sticking out the side. Really limited visibility. My boat's actually quite good from that perspective because my coach roof pushes forward, so I can actually kind of have head outside the boat, but you know, most of the new build boats are all inside. And, you know, as we head out to the west, we go through a funnel and it gets windier and narrower. So I think everyone is nervous about it, and I think we're probably going to see a cautious exit of the Solent from most people.
Any more, Helen? Any more questions from the floor? You don't have to be a member of the press, by the way. If you want to ask a question, I can see we've got some sailors in here. I'm going to put Paul Larson on the spot. We've got Paul Larson, Allegra. Charlie, could we get a microphone to Paul Larson, please? Fastest. Are you still the fastest man in the world, Paul? Charlie, he's right in front of you here. Yeah. Paul Larson, racing on Allegra. Mokra winner 2021?
That's correct, on Allegra. Yeah, so we're looking at a pretty good forecast. We just come from the round Gotland, and it was a good practice race for what we're about to see. But I'd have to say to Pip, I've got another question. I mean, we sailed 2 editions ago. You had no foils, and now the foils are getting bigger. I imagine in a couple of generations, you're just going to be on foils. So the boat might have completely evolved away. It was, how do you think for the weather model you've seen, are you going to get to use the foils much on this one? It's looking like it's going to be a beat all the way up to the Fastnet.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of those interesting ones where the non-foiling boats will be definitely in the mix for the beginning. I think they're going to be quite happy with the forecast all the way up to the Rock, all the way up to Land's End. I think we're hoping that once we get past the Scillies, then we'll be able to stick a bit of foil down and pull away from them. But right up until then, well, like with us, in our 2019 race, the foils aren't beneficial at every point of sail. So, yeah, it will definitely be a mixed fleet until Land's End.
And Shirley, I'd like to ask you a question. You're racing on the first 47.7 EH01, and it's a charter boat, charter guests. How well do you know the people you are going to be doing the Rolex Fastnet race with, Shirley? What's it going to be like, do you think?
Well, of course, when you're going on a charter boat, it's a good way to be able to sail at any part of the world, jump on a well-fitted boat, and crew cohesion might be a bit tricky, but at least everyone is sharing the same passion. And I think it's interesting to getting to know while sailing instead of drinking beer. Both, well, we can do both, but not at the same time. But and I should say I've been sailing with Global in different parts of the world, in the south of France, Val de Saint-Tropez, in Malta, and in Antigua. And I got some good friends from these sailings. And in Antigua, for example, we've been booking all together friends. So when we came to that place, we already knew everyone. So
You're braver than me, I have to say. I've actually sailed on your boat. Nothing wrong with the boat, but I'm not sure if I'd want to just meet people that way. But Ben Ibbotson, let's get Ben Ibbotson back up from Andrasta. So Ben, you've been on the Griffin programme for 2 years. What have you learnt, Ben?
Well, I think as a crew we've learned an insane amount. We generally we're mostly from dinghy backgrounds, whether it's team racing or fleet racing or little bits of kind of jog stuff where it's 70 milers. So a big part of it was the personal management side of things. How do we sustain ourselves? How do we sleep enough? How do we keep the crew running competitively? A lot of people have been talking to me about getting the best out of your boat and getting peels at the perfect times and head sail changes and making sure the boat's always at 100% of polars or as close as you can get them. Firstly, for Andrasta, we've just made our own polars this year, so we're not quite sure about that. But for me, the biggest learning factor is getting the best out of the crew. If we're not at 100%, the boat's never going to be at 100%. So how can we have the right people in the right places at the right times, getting enough sleep, getting enough food, and feeling confident in their abilities, which is a big point.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Ben. Well, we've got a skipper's briefing to attend, so we're going to have to say thank you very much for joining us, and best of luck in the race to all of you. That's it from us. A quick reminder, coverage of the race starts from 12:30 BST tomorrow. Holly Hamilton, myself, Pete Cumming, Annie Lush, Mike Golding will be looking back on this historic race and giving you live coverage from just about every angle you can imagine. But just for now, it's goodbye from the Rourke Cows Clubhouse.